In a forgotten corner of a dusty town, a young woman named Grace gave birth to twin boys. Her husband, Daniel, worked tirelessly at odd jobs, carrying loads to the market, cutting firewood, sometimes begging, to keep the family alive. But no matter how hard he worked, poverty clung to them like a curse. Grace grew bitter. Each cry from the twins sounded to her like chains dragging her deeper into despair. She resented the cracked walls of their hut, Daniel's empty pockets, and the boys who reminded her of her suffering. One night, after yet another argument, Grace made a choice that would scar the twin forever. She slipped out of the house with nothing but a cloth tied around her waist. Daniel woke to hear the twins crying alone. Grace was gone, without a goodbye, without remorse. Neighbors whispered cruel words. Daniel can't even keep his wife. What will happen to those poor children now? But Daniel held the babies close and whispered a vow. You will not die hungry. I'll raise you into men the world will never forget. The days that followed were unrelenting. With no wife to help, Daniel fought to feed his sons, Michael and Chibweek. He gave up his own meals so they could eat scraps of bread, soaking cassava in water to make it last longer. His body weakened, but his determination never faltered. The townspeople mocked them. Children laughed at the twins' torn clothes. Women sneered at Daniel at the market. Father of beggars. But Daniel turned humiliation into lessons. He taught his boys discipline, how to fetch water, how to calculate simple sums, how to read from an old chalkboard. Even in hunger, he trained their minds to believe they were destined for greatness. Sometimes the boys cried out, Dad, are we cursed? Daniel's eyes burned with conviction as he replied, No, you are chosen. This hunger is training you. One day you will feed nations. When Michael and Chibweek finally entered the village school, they came barefoot, their uniforms patched with leftover cloth. Their arrival was greeted with laughter. Look at the beggars! The taunts didn't break them. Instead, they sharpened their resolve. Michael excelled at mathematics, solving problems even teachers struggled with. Chibweek, with his gift of words, wrote essays that left the class stunned. But lunchtime was the cruelest hour. While others ate rice and meat, the twins drank water or chewed roasted groundnuts. Rumors spread that their mother, Grace, had remarried in the city and never mentioned her twins. At night, the boys whispered to each other, One day, we'll wear suits. One day, they'll beg to sit at our table. It was a vow sealed in hunger and humiliation. As the years passed, Daniel's strength began to fade. Malnutrition and endless labor wore him down, but he refused to quit. He sold his only valuable possession, an old bicycle, just to buy second-hand textbooks for his sons. On his deathbed, he called Michael and Chibweek close. His voice trembled, but his eyes were fierce. My sons, life has mocked us. But promise me you will not stop until you rise. Turn this hunger into fire. Build something greater than this town has ever seen. Through tears, the twins held his hands and swore, We promise. Dad, we'll make you proud. The next morning, Daniel was gone. The villagers shook their heads. Orphans now. Their story is finished. But for Michael and Chibweek, their story had only begun. At just 14, the twins were alone in the world. No parents, no inheritance, nothing but their father's words echoing in their hearts. They refused to beg. Instead, they hustled. They carried loads to traders at the market, sold sachet water in traffic, polished shoes at bus stops, anything that owned a coin. Every naira was saved. At night, they studied under dim kerosene lamps, sharpening their minds as much as their survival instincts. Their classmates mocked them relentlessly, but Michael's confidence grew sharper with every problem solved, and Chibweek's voice grew bolder with every essay written. One evening, Michael told his brother, We'll start small, but one day we'll build something so big, this town will kneel before us. Chibweek's eyes blazed with determination, and when that day comes, the woman who left us hungry will see who her sons became. That night, they slept on the cold floor, dreaming of skyscrapers, global businesses, and feeding millions. Dreams too big for orphans in rags, but dreams they swore would one day be real. Michael and Chibweek's hustle began to bear fruit. At just 15, they were known in the market as the shoe boys quick and hard-working. Then came their idea, selling roasted groundnuts in little paper cones at bus parks. Michael calculated how many cups they could buy with their savings. Chibweek, ever the salesman, crafted catchy slogans, shouting, "Crunchy groundnuts, straight from fire to your hands." Passengers smiled at his energy, and their business tripled in just weeks. But success was a way of attracting enemies. Other hawkers, older and stronger, began to see the boys as a threat. One afternoon, while they ran to catch a bus, a group of jealous vendors blocked their path. Their leader, a tall boy named Felix, sneered, "Little rats think they can steal our customers? Today, we'll teach you a lesson." They snatched the twins' entire bag of groundnuts and, in front of shocked passengers, poured it into the date. Chibweek fought back, fists flying, but the boys overpowered them and left them bruised and penniless. That night, the twins sat by the roadside, bleeding and broken. Chibweek clenched his jaw. Maybe we should quit. But Michael, wiping blood from his lip, shook his head. "No, we'll not quit. This pain will remind us why we must rise. If they think this is our end, they'll soon see us buying from the same people who mock us." The betrayal didn't kill them. It hardened them. Determined not to repeat the same mistake, the twins sought out knowledge. At the far end of the market, an older trader named Mr. Harris was known for his honesty. He sold yams in bulk and was respected by farmers. For weeks, Michael and Chibweek helped him without asking for pay, sweeping his stall, lifting heavy tubers, and running errands. Mr. Harris grew curious. "Why are you boys wasting your energy here?" Michael replied confidently, "We want to learn, not just to sell cones of groundnuts. We want to understand trade, how food moved from the farms to the plates." Harris chuckled, but their determination impressed him. He began to teach them the ropes, how to negotiate with farmers, how to check for rotten stock, and most importantly, how to build trust. Soon, he gave them a chance, 2 baskets of yams on credit. "Sell these. If you return with profit, you've earned my respect." The twins poured every ounce of energy into the deal. Chibweek charmed customers, while Michael calculated profits down to the last coin. By evening, not a single yam remained. They returned the capital and profit to Harris, who was stunned. "You two are different," he said. "Most grown men cheat me, but you've shown me integrity. From today, you'll be more than helpers, you'll be partners." This was the moment the twins transitioned from hustlers to budding entrepreneurs. The twins' rise wasn't without stumbling. With Harris's trust, they began dealing in larger quantities. Farmers started selling to them directly, bypassing others. But success came with new risks. Their first bulk contract involved delivering a truckload of yams to a city buyer. The boys invested everything they had, even borrowing a little from Harris. The truck was loaded, and their hearts were filled with hope. But halfway through the journey, disaster struck. The driver they hired absconded with both the truck and the goods. Hours turned to days. No call, no message, no truck. Their first big contract ended in ruin. Chibweek cried bitterly, pacing under the moonlight. "We're finished, Michael. We'll never recover. We owe Harris. Everyone will laugh at us again." But Michael, though crushed, whispered, "This is not our end. This is our first lesson. We trusted blindly. From now, we'll never hand over our sweat to anyone without accountability. We'll rise again." Though their backs were against the wall, their determination grew sharper. The twins refused to let failure define them. To repay Harris, they returned to small hustles, carrying loads, washing clothes, and reselling leftover produce. Their discipline stunned the community. Harris, touched by their resilience, forgave part of the debt. Farmers, seeing their honesty, offered them produce on flexible payment terms. Slowly, the twins rebuilt their business, this time with caution. They introduced small innovations, dividing goods into portions so even the poorest customers could afford them. Their stall became the busiest in the market. A rival trader mocked, "Selling crumbs won't make you rich." But within weeks, the twins' profits multiplied. Customers loved them. Farmers trusted them. Even city buyers started calling. For the first time, Michael and Chibweek hired helpers, other orphans from the village. Together, they created a small team fueled not just by profit, but by purpose. "We'll rise together," Michael told them. "Our hunger will not be wasted." The phoenix had begun to rise from the ashes. By their late teens, the twins had outgrown the village market. Their reputation as reliable suppliers spread far and wide. They decided to take a bold step, expanding to the city. With savings pooled, they rented a small warehouse in the bustling capital. Life there was brutal: high rent, cutthroat competition, and corrupt officials demanding bribes at every checkpoint. Yet, they stayed undeterred. They lived in the warehouse, sleeping on sacks of rice, eating scraps. But Michael never stopped calculating strategies, and Chibweek never stopped charming new buyers. One night, exhausted but unbroken, Chibweek wrote on the wall with chalk, "No child hungry." Michael looked at the words and smiled. "This is our mission, brother. This is why we can't fail." They began packaging food into smaller, affordable bags, a revolutionary idea at the time. Poor families, who couldn't afford full sacks, now had access to quality rice and beans in manageable portions. Their brand spread like wildfire. Within months, their warehouse was overflowing with customers. The boys who once starved now controlled the supply lines of an entire city. But they knew this was only the beginning. By now, Michael and Chibweek were no longer just the twins who sold in bags. They had become a phenomenon. Their idea of breaking bulk food into smaller, affordable packs spread like wildfire. Poor families who once starved could now afford daily portions. At the market, customers lined up before dawn. Mothers with children, bus drivers, and even rival traders flocked to their stall. Everyone wanted to buy the twins' bags. They were changing how food was sold. But with fame came envy. Older traders sneered. "They think they're clever. It won't last." Others tried to copy their method, but customers stayed loyal to the twins because of their trust and consistency. Chibweek, the talker, became the face of the business, always smiling, cracking jokes, making every customer feel valued. Michael remained a quiet force, managing accounts, predicting supply and demand like a genius. Together, they were unstoppable. One day, a journalist visited the market and wrote a headline, "The Orphans Who Revolutionized Food Sales." The story spread across the city. Suddenly, Michael and Chibweek were more than traders. They were entrepreneurs. As their business expanded, challenges grew. Trucks carrying their goods to the city were constantly stopped at checkpoints. Officials demanded bribes, threatening to seize everything. At first, the twins tried to pay small amounts just to keep things moving. But it didn't stop. The demands grew bigger. One morning, a full truck of rice meant for schools was seized because they refused to settle. The loss nearly ruined them. Their workers panicked, whispering, "We'll be destroyed if we fight them." But Michael clenched his fist. "If we bow now, we'll bow forever." Chibweek agreed. "No child will go hungry because of a bribe. We'll fight." They went to the press. Using their growing influence, they exposed the corruption. Pictures of children waiting for food while trucks were held at checkpoints hit newspapers. Outrage spread. Officials tried to silence them, but the twins' story was too powerful. Public sympathy turned in their favor. Citizens called them heroes. Though the fight cost them money, it won them the hearts of the people, and their brand became untouchable. One evening, after a heated meeting with officials, the twins were approached by a woman named Mrs. Carter, a philanthropist who had read about their struggles. She admired their courage and offered them a microloan, not charity, but capital to help them scale. Unlike many young entrepreneurs who wasted loans, the twins used every coin wisely. Michael invested in modern storage systems to prevent food spoilage. Chibweek improved packaging and distribution channels. Within months, wastage dropped by half, profit soared, and efficiency became their weapon. They were no longer just surviving. They were building a system. Mrs. Carter introduced them to investors, but she also warned them, "Success will attract snakes. Be vigilant." The twins nodded, but in their hearts, they knew they had something stronger than money, vision. They began dreaming beyond their city. Chibweek often said, "If we can feed one city, we can feed a nation. If we can feed a nation, why not the world?" Their small dream was becoming a global mission. Their breakthrough came when the government noticed their efficiency. A representative visited their warehouse and proposed a partnership. The twins would supply food to public schools across the state. The contract was massive. Thousands of children would rely on them for daily meals. It was a test of their ability to deliver on a large scale. At first, they were nervous. Trucks, staff, suppliers, all needed to be coordinated. One mistake could ruin their reputation. But Michael built a flawless system, while Chibweek motivated their workers with fiery speeches. We're not just selling food. We're feeding the future. When the program launched, schools that once struggled to feed students now had reliable meals. Children smiled with full plates, teachers praised their work, and parents blessed them. The media captured the moment. Newspapers declared, "Once hungry orphans, now feeding thousands." The twins stood in one of the schools, watching children eat beans and rice. Michael whispered to his brother, "We kept our vow. No child will go hungry." Chibweek smiled, "And this is just the beginning." Their school program caught international attention. At a global food summit, their story was presented as an example of local innovation solving hunger. Among the audience was Richard Montgomery, a billionaire investor known for funding bold ideas. He requested a private meeting with the twins. Nervous but determined, Michael and Chibweek arrived in simple suits borrowed from friends. Other presenters came in luxury cars, but the twins carried nothing but their vision. Richard asked, "What makes you different from every other food company?" Michael answered calmly, "We don't just sell food. We lived hunger. We know its pain. We swore to end it, not just for ourselves, but for children everywhere." Chibweek added with passion, "Give us a chance, and we'll show you how two boys who once starved can build a system to feed nations." The room went silent. Richard leaned back, impressed. "Most people pitch profit. You've pitched purpose. That's rare." By the end of the summit, Richard announced his decision, a multi-million-dollar investment into the twins' company. Cameras flashed, reporters swarmed, and the world finally recognized them. From Bayford orphans to partners with billionaires, their journey was becoming unstoppable. With Richard Montgomery's investment, Michael and Chibweek's dream exploded into reality. They built modern factories, installed machines that could produce fortified food packs, and expanded distribution across Africa. Their brand became a household name. Trucks painted with their company logo drove into remote villages, feeding families who once starved. Journalists nicknamed them the Hunger Twins. At an international conference in Geneva, they stood before presidents and global leaders. Chibweek, dressed sharply but speaking with the same fire from his street hawking days, declared, "We were abandoned hungry, but we refused to let hunger define us. Now, we want to make sure no child, no family, no nation suffers what we suffered." The crowd erupted in applause. Cameras captured their faces, once mocked in rags, now beamed across the world. But behind the success came new pressures. Competitors wanted them out of the way, politicians wanted control, and global giants tried to buy them out. Michael warned, "If we lose our purpose, we lose everything." Their rise had taken them to the global stage, but staying true to their mission would be their toughest challenge yet. In the midst of their global success, a figure from their past returned. Grace, their mother, poor, sick, and broken. She appeared at their office one afternoon, begging to see them. The staff were confused. This was a woman who abandoned them, who left them to starve. But Michael and Chibweek agreed to meet her. When Grace walked in, she fell to her knees, tears streaming. "My sons, forgive me. I was young. I was foolish. I was blinded by poverty. I thought leaving would save me, but it destroyed me. Please, let me die knowing you forgive me." The room fell silent. Years of anger and pain burned inside Chibweek. He wanted to scream, to remind her of nights they went to bed hungry, of the mockery of their father's death. But Michael placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. "We became who we are because of the pain you left us in. And because of that, we can choose mercy." Chibweek's eyes softened. Together, they lifted her up. "We forgive you," he whispered, though his voice cracked. News of their forgiveness spread like wildfire. Billionaires forgive the mother who abandoned them. It cemented their image, not just as businessmen, but as men of character. With global attention, Michael and Chibweek launched the No Child Hungry Foundation. They partnered with the UN and other organizations, distributing fortified food to war zones, refugee camps, and drought-stricken regions. Cargo ships carrying their brand docked in foreign harbors. Planes with their logo dropped food supplies into villages cut off by conflict. Children in faraway lands chanted their names. One powerful scene unfolded when the twins visited a refugee camp. A little girl with hollow eyes tugged Chibweek's shirt and whispered, "Thank you. I'm not hungry anymore." He bent down, tears in his eyes, and hugged her. Michael told the gathered crowd of aid workers, "We made a vow as children, under the moonlight, starving in our father's hut. We swore no child would feel what we felt. Today, that vow is alive." Their mission wasn't just about business anymore. It was about legacy, building a world where hunger would one day be history. But success came with a heavy price. Rivals in the food industry spread false rumors, accusing them of hoarding supplies. Politicians pressured them to align with parties. Even some employees betrayed their trust, leaking company secrets. One night, Michael sat alone in his office, the weight of responsibility crushing him. "We built this to help people, but now everyone wants a piece of us," he said bitterly. Chibweek joined him, calm but firm. "Brother, snakes will always come for the light. But we're not just businessmen, we're a mission. And missions survive storms." Instead of fighting with money or power, they doubled down on transparency. They opened their books to the public, allowed NGOs to audit their work, and broadcasted live distributions of food. Slowly, the lies faded. People saw the truth. The twins were not politicians or profiteers. They were warriors against hunger. But the lesson was clear. Greatness always comes with opposition, and they would have to fight harder than ever to protect what they built. Years passed. The twins, now men respected worldwide, stood at a world summit on hunger eradication. Behind them, giant screens showed images of children eating in schools, families in refugee camps smiling with full plates, and villages thriving because of their efforts. Michael took the podium first. "We were once boys marked as beggars. We were told our story was finished the day we lost our parents. But we refused to believe it. Hunger forged us into who we are today." Then Chibweek stepped forward, his voice steady and powerful. "Our mother abandoned us hungry, but we chose not to abandon the world. We chose to feed it. And today, we stand before you not as victims of poverty, but as proof that pain can be turned into purpose." The hall erupted in thunderous applause. Leaders rose to their feet. The once hungry orphans had become icons of hope. Later that night, as they stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city, Michael whispered, "We did it, brother. We kept our promise to Dad." Chibweek smiled, tears in his eyes. "And our legacy, it's not our wealth. It's every child who eats because of us." The camera fades out on the two brothers, silhouetted against the night sky, men who turned hunger into a weapon of change, leaving behind not just an empire, but a legacy that would feed nations for generations.